I'll call the Board Policy Committee meeting to order. Have we been properly posted?
Yes, we have.
Thank you. Are there any citizens? No citizens? All right, the first action item is approval of the policy minutes from the March meeting. All right.
I can second that.
Any additions or corrections? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next item is revision to policy 5117G, guidelines for school attendance areas and in-district transfers. Who wants to take the lead on that?
Well, I have
have
a
a question?
question. Yeah, I'd like to address it to Todd only because I got a phone call on it. There hasn't been any problem with this, has there? This is just for further clarification, right?
Well, we do have some kids that think they can come and go. You know, like, for example, they'll apply to a particular school.
Yes.
They'll leave it for whatever reason, then they want to go maybe to a different school
Oh.
or to go back. But, so it is a problem in some
Oh,
cases, especially
okay.
when they've applied to a school that's got a waiting list. They start that school, and now you've eliminated anyone else who'd go there, then
True.
they leave again.
Okay.
So that's why we're trying to limit it to
Okay.
one transfer per
Okay,
year.
so then we're just cleaning it up and cleaning up the
Yep.
process and
Yeah.
practice. Okay, that's good. I can understand it. You know, it's not good for schools and for the kids to be transferring around from
Yeah.
school to school.
We do it on a case-by-case basis, depending on what.
Sure.
There are some extenuating issues that make sense to do it, but we just don't want to make a practice of it.
That's right. I agree. Thank you.
Does anyone want a further explanation of that? We have Mr. Cook here tonight to tell us all the details. Karen?
Thank you. I just wanted to check on line 23, number 2. It says the district will provide no transportation except as required by law for students attending schools outside of their designated homeschool area. So when someone transfers, and I know sometimes, let's say if one of our kids is in a shelter and we try to make sure that they stay, no matter where they are, that they get bused so that they have some consistency with that school. I know in this case, we're not talking about that. We're talking about maybe kids that are abusing and going and hopping.
Well, those are all situations that probably we would be required to transport regardless of where they're going.
Yeah.
What we're saying is if someone wanted to go to Randall STEM, since it's a charter school, we would not provide transportation unless there was an extenuating circumstance, perhaps a special ed situation. Otherwise, we would not, by law, we would not be required to transport them.
Okay, so if someone switches to another school, let's leave the charter out of it because we wouldn't be busing them anyway. So let's say they choice to a school and they're in charge of that,
Correct.
their own transportation.
Right.
And then if they want to go to another school, they're in charge of their own transportation anyway. It's not as if
Right.
busing has anything
Yeah.
to do with this because
Yeah.
they're choicing anyway.
Right. They can potentially get on a bus if they pay to ride. They can do pay to ride.
Okay.
But we're not required to bus them. That's a voluntary basis.
Okay.
Barbara Brezink.
Yeah. Joe, maybe you can answer this. What does the law require us to do regarding transportation? It says except as required by law. I know we have to bus, special education students.
So under IDEA,
Oh,
special
okay.
circumstances under Section 504, and then any student that would be impacted by the McKinney-Vento Homeless Children's Act.
Okay.
So it would really be where the federal law or state statute would step in and say, district, in this
Okay.
circumstance, you
Okay.
must provide transportation. But for the general in-district school choice, where a parent in perhaps the Summit View attendance area would like to send their student to their child to Blair,
Right.
it's their responsibility to get
Okay.
their child there.
Now, the kids that are at the different homeless sites, do these kids, do we try to place them in the neighborhood school?
For homeless, it really goes, it's where the student started, it's their school of origin. So if a child was attending school at Summit View and the family became homeless during that time and was placed in a shelter in perhaps Milwaukee, it's our job to get that student back to Summit View to go to school. We don't change their placement, they get the school of origin.
Really? So if they move to Milwaukee, we bus them from Milwaukee?
If due to homeless circumstance, we would
Wow.
be transporting. Yes.
Wow, that's good for the student, that's for sure.
Yep.
Wow. Interesting. Thank you for telling me that. That's interesting.
Any other questions? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to approve the
Okay.
revisions.
Sure, I will make the motion to accept the revisions to policy 5117G.
I'll second.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Our next item is a potential new policy, standard use of service animals.
Yeah, and this is primarily, student services, a brand-new policy. We've not had this before, and it almost 100% of the time is going to relate to special needs students. So
Sure.
I'll let Joe.
Correct.
comment on that one.
Over the course of the year, we've had a couple of inquiries about service animals in school, and under the Americans with Disabilities Act and the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, in certain circumstances, children, students would need access to having a service animal with them in
Sure.
school. Since we've had a couple of inquiries, we didn't have policy, just to be proactive, like to get a policy on the books that really frames the district's obligation to allow the service animal in school, but then also the family's responsibility for the care of the animal, ensuring a level of training, who is going to do the cleanup, because the animal will need at some point during the day to relieve itself.
Yeah.
And then also by which circumstances we would be able to say, you know what, the animal is out of control, you're not able
Sure.
to control the animal, we can't allow that animal in our schools anymore. So we wanted to have some guiding practices in place in the event that that does come to us.
Any other questions? Yes, Barbara?
Joe, if a student comes with a service animal, is it also possible that that student could need a teacher's aid?
Yes, the
Okay.
service animal would not remove the need for an aid.
Okay.
In my past experiences in a school system where we did have a service animal there, we were looking at increasing the independence of the student. The student was thinking about going off to a four-year college, so it was
Oh,
a matter
yeah.
of, where we wanted to help the student be as independent as possible, so the service animal was replacing some of the things that the aid
Okay.
did for the student over the course of the day.
And how about, the outdoor needs of the animal? Can we send an aid outdoors with that animal?
It really falls on the person who is using the animal
Really?
or their
Oh,
family to go out and make sure the animal can get its break during the
But,
day.
of course, there could be an exception to that.
We would really want to hold tight that it's the family's responsibility to care for the animal and not take that responsibility on as a school.
Wow.
And the policy would talk about how the family is responsible for the cleanup in a designated area
Sure.
of the school property.
Sure.
So that, obviously, if kids were going out on recess, outside of what might happen from the neighborhood, we wouldn't want anything from the school
Right.
contributing to a.
Does, may I continue, Madam Chairman?
You may.
Does the law provide that language that says that it's the parent's responsibility? It
Absolutely.
does. Wow. That's interesting. Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you. This would be unfortunate, but what happens if another student is having allergies to that
The-
student's dog?
The policy indicates that the school would work to accommodate that to what is in a reasonable limit, or a reasonable expectation, where, for instance, if it was a third grade classroom and there was an allergy, we would have the ability to take the child from one third grade classroom to the other third grade classroom who has it. That would fall into the category of reasonable accommodation. If the type of animal would provide a broad allergic response from a class, then that would no longer fall into the category of a reasonable accommodation, and we'd have to look at other avenues of support.
Other schools in the district?
Other schools in the district perhaps where that, where we didn't have that allergy
Okay.
type issue. The policy does indicate, and the ADA generally stresses that service animal really falls into the category of a service dog.
Yes, right,
That's how they
right.
define it. There is some variance to that, but generally you see that
It's a dog.
dogs are the animals that are trained to be the service
Sure.
animal.
Sure.
Karen,
Interesting.
you had one more
Thank you.
question?
Yes, on line 21, If an animal must be separated from the individual whom the animal is accompanying, it is the responsibility of that person or student's family to arrange for the care and supervision of the animal during the period of separation. So what happens if the child is going on a field trip? What happens if they're, does the animal go on the bus? Let's say if they're going to the museum. A lot of places have, what's the law about other places having service animals? Do they all allow them except for maybe hospitals or?
Under, public places under the Americans with Disabilities Act provide for service animals. So, you know, when you're going to your courthouses, generally when you're going to your churches, when you go to colleges and such, places of work, service animals are allowed there. This period of separation perhaps would apply to a student who is swimming in physical education, and the dog isn't going to be in the pool with them during that. It would be a teacher, an aide, of occupational or physical therapist perhaps is working with a student in the pool. Somebody would have to be present then to accompany the dog during that therapy session or that class, and that then again would not fall on the responsibility of the school. It would be the family's responsibility to provide that supervision of the animal.
Mr. Zink.
To my knowledge, we don't have any at this time, do we?
At this time, we do not.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
No, we're being proactive.
Yep, very good. Smart,
Any other
smart thing to do.
questions?
No. All right, I'll move that we accept the potential new policy, student use of service animals, as proposed.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And we have one more item, revisions to policy 8343, board agenda preparation, and policy 9130, Board of Education committees.
These are existing policies. We are simply adding compensation committee to that. Again, the compensation committee deals with all compensation. The only negotiating that we can do currently is for base salary for the Teachers Association. The other groups have not elected to re-up their union membership. So, but we still have to deal with their compensation, and that's where the committee is involved. So this I think over the next couple months, we'll probably be using the committee quite a bit, and Mr. Como had requested this become a standing committee on the agenda because we will be calling on it
Sure.
from time to time. Before it was in other business, and it didn't seem to be a good place for it. And so it'll be a standing committee with appointed members, just like it was before.
Mr. Zink.
Did AFSCME, who represented our custodial group, did they disband?
Yes.
Oh, they
Well, it
did.
didn't disband, but they just didn't apply for.
Didn't, but there,
union.
as far as you know, there's still some membership going on there.
No, there is none
There's
right
none,
now.
not right
I mean,
now.
but they did not reapply for union membership.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Karen?
No.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion to approve the revisions?
I will make the motion to approve the revisions to policy 8343, board agenda preparation, and 9130, Board of Education committees.
Thank you.
Second?
Okay. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We have no information items. Do we have any other items that need discussion or revision?
We will, I mean, over the next couple months, we'll be bringing a number of, like, the grading. I know some people want to revisit the AP tests policy, so we'll be looking at those again. Those will be coming forward over the next month or two.
That was going to have some revision anyway, if I remember.
Grading was certainly going to have one, and we're still reworking some of the middle school and the elementary grading scales. You approved the high school grading scale.
Yep.
And now we're on to the other two, and those hopefully will be done by June, so.
Madam Chairman? Question?
Yes.
Todd, are we going to revisit the discussion about the number of assessments that we have in the district? There was recently an article in the paper, and,
I think that's a CNI.
yeah.
That should be a
Okay.
CNI
All
discussion.
right, I'll bring that up.
Because some of the things that are being called assessments aren't really necessarily assessments, they're more of the way we track progress.
Well, like MAP,
So I think we need to probably come up with a definition of assessments and then discuss what we're doing in each of these cases. and
Okay,
then from
that's a
there,
good idea.
Decide, do we need less of those?
Okay, I'll discuss that with Ryan, thank you.
Yeah, or Mr. Anthony too,
Or Mr.
is
Anthony,
very
right.
involved in it.
Okay.
Okay. If we have no other business, we will have our next meeting on Tuesday, May 19th at 5:30 PM, right here. Thank you very much.